Today, our freedom to vote is under assault. A landmark bill, as we all know, sits before the United States Senate. The Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act. This bill represents the first real opportunity to secure the freedom to vote since the United States Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act nearly a decade ago. And the Senate must pass this bill now.
You don't get to claim, as Senate Democrats do, that you favor democracy when you propose measures to stop democracy. Democracy means the voters decide. This bill is an assault on democracy.
Hello, all you beautiful and amazing people. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, I'm your host, Hyde, and this is Hide and Seek Media, where we're talking about news, sports, politics, and so much more. As you can see, both parties are screaming at the top of their lungs right now that the other is assaulting democracy and assaulting voting rights in this country. One is saying that state-led legislatures are passing laws making it harder for people to vote in person and by mail.
And the proponents of these laws are not only putting in place obstacles to the ballot box, they are also working to interfere with our elections, to get the outcomes they want, and to discredit those they do not.
And the other side is saying that this bill they're trying to pass will federalize elections going forward and making it easier for everyone to cheat.
Let me give you an example of how crazy this is just by analogy. Can you imagine if Republicans proposed a law that said that states like California and New York and Illinois have to submit every law or policy affecting religious liberty or affecting firearms to a brand new division of the Department of Justice staffed almost entirely by activists who've been fighting in favor of religious liberty and in favor of the Second Amendment their entire time? And if these activists objected to the California or New York law, then the states couldn't implement them. That would be absurd. That's what the Democrats have done. And ironically, the Democrats claim they're protecting the right to vote. This bill is an assault on the right to vote.
So, who should we believe? Well, I'm going to tell you. There's one party that does something almost on a regular nowadays. And I didn't really notice it until I heard it from this other YouTuber, Viva Fry. If you guys don't know who he is, you need to go check his channel out. I'll put the link down in the description. But he's a Canadian lawyer. I think he was a former prosecutor of some kind. But I follow him anytime I want to hear a legal expert on situations, right? Because he's got a pretty good take on this kind of stuff. So there's this YouTuber, Viva Fry, who says this thing, confession by projection. And when I first heard that, I was almost floored. I was like, holy crap. That's like the perfect way to summarize what the Democrats do, right? Confession by projection. So basically what that means is that they're confessing that they're doing it by projecting what they're doing onto their opponents, right? Or their adversaries. And so to make you believe it's the adversary doing it and not them. So, case in point, Russia collusion, right? For 4 years, we heard about how Donald Trump colluded with Russia to win the election in 2016. And yet, after all the investigations were done, nobody could find any proof of any kind of collusion. As a matter of fact, they said there was no collusion. But it was the Democratic Party and the Hillary Clinton campaign who paid for the Steele dossier, which started the whole Russia collusion thing to begin with. So, confession by projection. And so they want to pass this Freedom to Vote Act to basically federalize elections, to make it easier to get mail-in ballots, to make ballot harvesting legal, and to make a lot of other things that are open for fraud legal.
And there are a lot of terrible provisions in the bill, but let me just cover two briefly. Department of Justice preclearance for everyone Democrats don't like, and Department of Justice preclearance for everything Democrats don't like. Here's how it would work. Every state and local government across the country would have to submit certain voting changes. What voting changes? Well, anything like imposing voter ID on elections or preventing ballot harvesting, to Kristen Clark and Vanita Gupta, two partisan activists who haven't been shy about their hatred of voter integrity laws before those changes can go into effect. All right, spoiler alert, if it is a law protecting the integrity of the election, if it's a voter ID law, if it's prohibiting ballot harvesting, the partisan activists at the Department of Justice are going to object.
What essentially this is doing is trying to take the voting rights, right, the ability to determine the voting rights of each state away from the states and give it federal oversight. So if the states want to change their voting laws, first they have to submit them to this committee, and then if they get approved, you can change them. Now, basically, whoever's in power is going to be in control of that committee, and voting laws are going to get passed every 2 years, or it's going to be just stupid, right? Plus there's a lot of other things in that bill that just make it way easier for people to commit fraud, right, or to cheat. And I'm a person who is for voter integrity, right? So if I got to make it a little bit harder for you to vote in order to ensure that cheating doesn't happen, then I'm sorry. It's going to be a little harder for you. Now, doesn't mean you can't vote, right? If you know you're going to be able to make it to the polls on election day, well, then you know that well in advance for the most part, and you can apply for a mail-in ballot, right? An absentee ballot is what we call them. So there are other ways that you can vote. Confession by projection. Here again, we're back to this point because Democrats are the ones that want to take away voter ID. They say it's racist, right? To demand that you prove who you are when you go to vote. But it's not racist to demand you prove who you are when you go to a restaurant and present your vaccination card. You have to show voter ID in places like New York when you go to a restaurant and show your vaccination card. You have to show your photo ID along with it to prove that that's who you are and that you just didn't borrow somebody's vaccination card, right? So if you have to prove that, which is, if we take COVID seriously, then and people in New York obviously are taking it pretty serious. So if we take it seriously, then that makes sense. Hey, if we're gonna have these mandates, we got to make sure you are who you say you are. Well, if voting is voting is the most critical thing an American can do, because they're essentially saying, I'm choosing you to represent me in our government. So because I think you will do the best job at doing what in helping pass the laws that I think are good for the country. Voting is the most important thing you can do in this country. And so we have to make sure that the integrity of the vote, right, is sound, or it doesn't matter. Then we lose our we lose our republic, we lose our country, we lose everything if the integrity of the vote is lost. So we're going to get into these stories and talk about why it's important to protect voting rights in this country. But before we do, if you like the work I'm doing here and you want to support the channel, there are many ways you can do it. I list many different crypto wallets down in the description below that you can donate to. There's also a merch link in the description that you can head to, and you can pick you out one of these funny political t-shirts like this one or these right here. Also, you can head over to locals.com and join my community. And if you become a premium member with your subscription of just $2.99 a month, you'll get access to not only all of my videos, but articles that I write and exclusive content that I upload to Locals only. So head over to Locals and become a member today. But let's get into this story about the Democrats and their Plan B now that their voting bill is going to fall to the filibuster. So we have this story here from The Hill. Democrats ponder Plan B strategy to circumvent voting rights filibuster. Some Democrats are scrambling for a Plan B to pass voting rights legislation after Senators Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona and Joe Manchin from West Virginia announced last week that they would not vote to change the Senate's filibuster rule despite the pleading of President Biden. Now, some Democrats are discussing a novel approach to circumventing a Republican filibuster that would allow voting rights legislation to pass with 51 votes without changing the Senate's rules. These Democrats, including Senator Tim Kaine, are exploring the possibility of forcing Senate Republicans to actually hold the floor with speeches and procedural motions. They hope that the Republican opposition will tire itself out after a few days or weeks, and that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer from New York may be able to then call for a simple majority vote on final passage and skip the formal procedure vote known as clouter on ending debate. So basically what that says is they are going to basically say, okay, guys, you want to not vote for this? Tell us why. And then the Republicans will have to, take the floor, give a speech on why they don't want to vote for this, and then they're going to debate it back and forth and blah, 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 blah. And this will go on for days, possibly weeks, as this article says. And then when finally the Republicans decide they don't want to vote anymore, or they don't want to argue anymore, then Chuck Schumer can call for a majority vote and they'll get it to pass. That's if they can get Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to vote for the Voting Rights Act, or the Freedom to Vote Act, or whatever they call it now. They go on to report, there are a couple of paths here. So they go on to report, there are a couple of paths here. Do we go down the path and do a long debate until it's done and then have a simple debate? Kaine told reporters last week. We wouldn't need rule changes to pass the bill by simple majority if the debate is over. Theoretically, you do not need rules change to pass a bill that's on the floor. You just have to allow debate to occur, he added. The strategy has gained more attention from Senate Democrats in recent days as it's become crystal clear that Sinema and Manchin won't vote for a more straightforward rules change to lowering the procedural threshold for ending a filibuster from 60 to 50. A second Democratic senator confirmed that colleagues are reviewing the idea of forcing Republicans to stage a talking filibuster to block voting rights legislation. So, to me, this is a stupid ploy, because you don't think that the Republicans can come up with speech after speech after speech after speech about how to stop this? Give Senator Ted Cruz the floor. I bet he could give a 10-minute speech every day railing against this bill. I've pulled the bill up, right? I'm not going to lie. It is huge. There is so much crap in that bill. Now, if you want to go look it up, just type in Freedom to Vote Act in any Google search, right? And go right to the Congress website and look it up yourself. It gives you a summary, and you can actually go through each actual section. And some of the crap in there is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But they make the bill so damn big, nobody reads it, and they can just shove a bunch of crap in there, right? Nobody wants to read it past page 30 or 40 because, oh my God, look at all this crap they put in here. And then they sneak something in that nobody was paying attention to, right? Kind of like what happened with the UFO stuff in the omnibus bill. How they snuck in, how they had to release information about UFOs. But really, this was going to fail from the beginning. Really, this was going to fail from the beginning. The bill was, there's just too much shady stuff in there. And you put Kamala Harris in charge. That was definitely a bad idea. Right? And there were so many things that went wrong with this attempt at getting this bill passed. We have this story right here from the Rolling Stone, right? Insiders reveal what went wrong in Biden's voting rights push. Biden vowed a major voting bill would be one of his first acts. Allies say the White House has been MIA. In mid-November, Vice President Kamala Harris joined a video call with a coalition of nearly 250 groups trying to pass new legislation to protect the right to vote and prevent future election sabotage attempts like what happened after the 2020 election. The participants on the call included the heads of major labor unions, civil rights leaders, and other influential activists who had supported the Biden-Harris ticket in 2020 and would no doubt be called upon to help re-elect that ticket in 2024. So, I'm just going to pause right there and say, what? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? To prevent future sabotage attempts like what happened after the 2020 election. Now, go look this up. Go to Google, type in Time Magazine, fortified 2020 election. And then read the article that comes up. This is absolutely ridiculous. The voting reform campaign had reached a critical moment. State legislatures led by Republicans had passed dozens of new bills that would make it harder to vote and empower partisan operatives to exert more control over ballot counting and election administration. Okay, so wait. That's what they did in 2020. Okay? In 2019 and in 2020, they passed all of these laws through state legislation that allowed mail-in ballots. Then they had operatives in places like don't you remember seeing video of poster board or plywood or something being put up in the windows in Detroit while they were counting ballots? or the video in Georgia of them pulling suitcases of ballots out from underneath tables to count them after everybody else had gone, running the same batch of ballots through the machine 3 or 4 times. Now, all of that we can throw out the window, right? We'll just throw all of that out the window because I don't even think that had anything to do with really what happened. And so right here is a section that you're not going to get to see what I have to say if you're watching this on YouTube. Because from here, it's going to jump to the next part of the video. And what I say going from this part to where it jumps, you can only find on locals because YouTube won't allow what I'm about to say. So head over to locals and become a member today. Welcome back, YouTube fans. If you didn't get to hear all of what I just said, make sure to go check out locals.com and join my community where you can find that video. But let's get back to Rolling Stone's article about how Joe Biden failed to get his Voting Rights Act passed. So they go on to report, but if the allies on that November call had expected a rousing speech or a valuable insight into the White House's strategy on voting rights, they left the call disappointed. Harris's speech included no specifics. She rattled off statistics well known to everybody on the call about the wave of state-level Republican voting bills, and at one point she mentioned inside-outside organizing as if it were a novel concept in a meeting of organizations that spend thousands of hours and millions of dollars on organizing strategy. Harris, who is leading the White House's voting rights push, summed up her efforts so far by saying that she said she'd held many meetings on voting rights. 6 minutes and 51 seconds later, an irritated participant timed it. Harris thanked the group and logged off. Several participants on the call say they were surprised by how brief and uninspiring Harris's appearance was. Even if she chose not to share the White House's own thinking on how to pass new voting rights legislation, she could have used the time to galvanize organizations that had been working nonstop to pass the bills. It was a chance to fire up the groups that are fighting for this and show a real commitment, says one participant on the call, who asked for anonymity to avoid further fraying relationships with the White House. The end result was deflating. The source added, it wasn't necessarily the quantity of the time, it was the quality of the messages to the groups that are killing themselves to pass these bills. So, in other words, Kamala Harris fell flat. That's why is anyone surprised, right? Why are you surprised? I'm not surprised. Are you surprised? Kamala Harris can't do anything. I mean, people are leaving her staff left and right. The border is a mess. She can't get this passed. I mean, we all know what she can do, right? She can hold criminals in jail wrongfully for long past their sentence. She can wrongfully imprison people altogether who are innocent. We all know how she got elected to begin with, right? I mean, come on. She called Joe Biden a racist. She called him a racist right to his face, and now she's his vice president. Come on. What the? Really, people? This is why. This is just the reason. This right here is why people are waking up by the droves. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's approval ratings are in the toilet. I mean, they're lower than Donald Trump's were. Okay? That's bad. Because Donald Trump's were like some of the lowest approval ratings a president's seen since Jimmy Carter, right? And Biden and Harris's are worse. So this just is another sign, right? Another sign that red wave is going to be coming in November in these midterm elections. And you have this story right here from CNN, right? Why the 2022 midterms look like the opposite of 2018. And if everybody remembers 2018, the Democrats took control of the House and Senate, and we lost the ability to get any bills passed while President Trump was in office. So CNN is obviously referring to the fact that it's going to be the opposite this time, right? So they go on to report what a difference 4 years makes okay. So they go on to report what a difference 4 years makes in politics. At this point in 2017, Democrats were about to pull off a stunning Senate win against a very flawed opponent in the deeply red state of Alabama. It was one of many indications that Democrats were on their way to a big 2018 victory. Today, everything is different. Pretty much every single indicator that pointed to a Democratic wave in the 2018 midterms now points to a Republican one in the 2022 midterms. Here are some of the key factors to compare. Now, mind you, this is CNN, so generic congressional ballot. Start with the fact that Democrats were up by about 9 points in polling for the race for Congress in early December 2017. As it turned out, it was the margin by which they'd win the national House vote in November 2018. The Republicans hold an average 2-point advantage on the generic ballot in December 2021. There have only been 2 midterm cycles since 1938 when Republicans had any lead on this measure at this point. One of those was 2002, when Republicans defied midterm history to gain House seats in the wake of the 9/11 attacks and a very high approval ratings for President George W. Bush. The other was 2010, when they were up by 2 points on the generic ballot at this moment in time and went on to net gain 63 seats. We could see it bigger than that this year. Presidential approval. A big reason Republicans were struggling in December 2017 was that then President Donald Trump's average approval rating was a meager 37%. It was the worst for an elected president about 11 months into his term. Joe Biden is not much better with an approval rating of about 42%. That's not right. Okay. That is CNN's approval rating. Because the last one I saw was like 32. Okay. So, we'll just give it to CNN on this one. So they go on to say, the special elections in Virginia, there's a bunch of people retiring. So what this means is that Democrats are flailing right now. They're falling apart. You have 26 Democrats retiring this cycle, which means that's 26 seats that are going to be up for grabs. Now, even if 15 of those go to Republican, right? That's more than half. And as long as we hold all the seats we have now, we'll own both the House and the Senate, because there are going to be a lot of other seats that are flipped as well, not just those. There's a good chance. There's a very good chance we could see a massive red wave. I'm talking red tsunami, right? Crashing over this country. But what we need to make sure is that red wave crashing over the country is putting America first candidates in place. Because that's the most important thing, right? Is that we put people in place who care about this country first. What happens here first. Taking care of its citizens first. Cutting back on the size of government. Limiting the government's reach. Delegating it down to the state level like it should be. That is what we need to be voting for. Those are the candidates we need to be voting for. Republican, Independent, Democrat, I don't care. If that's what they stand for, we can debate the other things later. First, let's talk about what you stand for in this country. Do you believe in the Constitution? Yes. Check. Do you believe in the Declaration of Independence? Yes. Check. Do you believe in personal freedom? Yes. Check. Do you believe in individual responsibility? Yes. Check. Do you believe in taking care of this country first? Yes. Check. Do you believe in stopping all these foreign wars? Yes. Check. Those are the candidates we need to be pushing forward. Those are the candidates we need to be voting for and putting in office in these midterms. We need to be setting up this government for 2024. And whether it be Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, one of those two is going to win the election in 2024. And we need to have the House and Senate prepared for them when they come into office so that we can be ready to pass bills right away. The only way we do that is by doing your research, looking into local candidates. Don't just vote down ticket because you didn't do any research. If you didn't do any research, don't mark for anybody. If you don't know who's running in your local races, don't vote for them. Because local races count too. And if you're just voting down ticket, you're voting for an incumbent, you could be voting for a establishment politician, Republican or Democrat. And that we don't need those people in office anymore. We don't need people like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. All those people need to go. All of them need to go. The rare ones that stand up and fight, they can stay for a little while longer. But sooner or later, they got to go too. Once we can replace them with another fighter. Somebody who stands up for their people, their district. Not for the party line, right? That is what we need to be doing. And those are the candidates we need to be paying attention to. And so that is what I will be digging into all year. So make sure to stay tuned to this channel for more videos about the candidates coming up in these midterm elections and who I think might be good to vote for in the local elections here in Oklahoma and national elections all around the country. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. Smash that like button. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video and the topic. I love to engage with my viewers, so feel free to fire away. Also, I'm trying to get my URL changed from all these funky letters and numbers up here to my channel name. But the only way I can do that on YouTube is if I get to 100 subscribers. Now, YouTube is not going to share my videos, right? I've gotten a couple of strikes. I've got a permanent warning, and they just don't like what I talk about. So they're not going to share my videos. So I need you guys to share my video. Share it on all social media platforms. Share it with your friends. Share it with your neighbors. Share it with strangers. Share it with everybody. That's the only way my channel is going to grow, is if people like you hit that share button and share this video. I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.